Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick synopsis or reflections in our last performance. Probably the thing that I failed to mention or emphasize last night that really kind of caught my attention this morning was the production that we got from a lot of different areas. People rising up and making significant plays for us. And really, I just think that has to happen at this point in the journey that is the season. Due to attrition or people evolving, I just think that people get an opportunity to put their hand in the pile and be reasons why we're successful. Guys like, Matt Wright, banging field goals. James Pierre, I thought, had a significant interception that kind of jump-started a collection of running backs of Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland, for example. Guys that had elevated roles and really delivered for us in a really positive way. I just want to congratulate those guys and be thankful for the efforts that they were able to display. It doesn't happen just solely in the stadium. This is not a patient man's business. We never ask these guys to be patient. We ask them to simply work while they wait for the opportunity. And their work shows when they get the opportunity. And I thought that was reflective of all of those guys. We'll always have an inclusive mentality. Cody White got called up and elevated and was a contributor at wide receiver and on special teams as well. And I'm just thankful for that group's collective readiness and the playmaking that added to our cause in a big way. The negative components of play, man, I just thought, like I mentioned last night, man, our kickoff coverage was not good. We were missing Miles Boykin and Robert Spillane, but boy, it's unacceptable, particularly because of where we're going this week. And match it up against Patterson, who is the best there is at that. And so we got some work ahead of us in preparation on a short week to shore up that component of play. And we can't chalk it up solely to players available or unavailable. We got to look at all aspects of that unit in an effort to shore up that. And we can't lose the field position component of play in the manner in which we did. I thought that kickoff, particularly that started the second half, was a catalyst that provided some momentum for them that took quite a while for us to settle down, and that's just the nature of ball. Things to learn and grow from. We'll continue to do so. We'll do so in a short week this week as we push forward toward the Atlanta Falcons. From a health standpoint, we had a number of guys. They had some things transpire in the stadium. Don't have an update yet on Naj and his abdomen and what that might mean. Just not enough time since we landed and getting that looked at. But as always, his participation in practice and the quality of that participation will be our guide in terms of developing a role for him and what that might look like. A lot of other guys had bumps and bruises associated with play. Minka Fitzpatrick was being evaluated post-game, and I think he was unavailable for some of you guys. T.J. Watt, Larry Ogunjobi, Miles Jack. We don't anticipate any of these guys missing time, but these guys, along with others, because we're working on a short week, may be limited, particularly at the early portions of the week. I may do some things globally in terms of how we work on a Wednesday, for example, in an effort to be inclusive and bring the preparation to some of those guys who are a little bit less than ready to start the physical work that is preparation. But that's nothing new. That's just life for us and life for anyone that's coming off of Monday Night Ball. We're not going to make a big deal out of that. We'll just simply do what's appropriate, prepare our guys, and put them in position to step into our next stadium. Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons briefly. They got some things that pose a significant challenge. First, I was talking about Patterson and what a dynamic return man he is. The field position component of play, his resume, what he has been, needs no endorsement from me. It's just been nothing short of special. And the things that he's able to do on offense as well. I remember going to his pro day over a decade ago, and really just thinking what a special athlete he was. At that time, Tennessee had used him a little bit on some toss sweeps and stuff, exclusively out of the backfield. He had been a return man and, some wide receiver screens and things of that nature. But to watch those talents evolve over the last decade and be the dynamic playmaker that he has been as a wide receiver, as a running back, as a starter, capable runner, as a dynamic return man. I just got a lot of respect for him, and boy, we got to minimize his impact on the game, and that's no easy task. But also looking at the offense, Mariota's mobility is a challenge. Their schematic use of his mobility is a challenge. I think it starts there. I think anytime you're looking at a quarterback with a unique skill set in the area of mobility and they have schematics to match, that has your attention. Those are the type of things that level the playing field, that create space, that produce splash plays or big plays, and we just can't have that. He's got a quality group of young eligibles to throw to, led by Drake London. I think he's their leading receiver, but he does a really nice job of spreading the ball around. I imagine having a quality veteran like Mariota is good when you got a collection of young eligibles. He's probably a major component of their development individually and collectively. They get after people in the offensive line. I see a commitment there. The zone scheme running, the stretches, the doubles. They just do a really good job of getting hats on hats and moving the train along, as I said. And then the schematic use of quarterback mobility is a big challenge. On the defensive side of the ball, man, Dean Pease is a vet. He's a been there, done that guy. He understands us. We've competed against him a lot over the years, got a lot of respect for him. He's fundamentally sound. At the same time, he's aggressive. They get after you in a myriad of ways, man. You got to be prepared to deal with the schematics that he throws at you. From a player standpoint, Grady Jarrett is dynamic. It kind of reminds me of Geno Atkins, a guy that I'm probably more familiar with. Oftentimes, I'll compare guys to guys that I'm familiar with. He's dynamic in that way. He's a tough block one-on-one because of the athleticism in the run and in the pass. He can create negativity in your game by ending up in your backfield. And so, man, we got to do a good job of trying to minimize the negativity that he brings. I think they got quality edge people and deep edge people. They drafted 2 relatively high in the draft to go along with Carter, who kind of leads that group. Rashard Evans, man, is playing really good football for him. He's their green dot in all situations player. He has a history with Coach Pease extending back to Tennessee, and I think you just see that in how he plays. I imagine that is a big asset to him as an individual and to them as a collective, man. He's able to communicate and be a hub of communication, a defensive quarterback, if you will. His productivity speaks for itself. He's well over 100 tackles. He's one of the top tacklers in the league, and I'm sure Coach Pease is excited about having a guy run the show that he has an extended experience with that goes beyond their present location. In the back end, A.J. Terrell, I think, is really, really talented, man. Got an opportunity to spend a lot of time with him in draft prep when he came out, and it's being reflected in his play. He's aggressive, man. He's a line of scrimmage guy. He gets after people. He's agile. He's got ball skills, man. It was a really impressive interception he had and off coverage on that comeback this past weekend. But they got a lot of talented young guys in the secondary. They utilize them all. John Hoke, their secondary coach, man, has been there, done that guy, a veteran guy I've known and respected over the years, man. And I just think they do a really good job of keeping you off balance with their collection of people, how they divide their labor in the schematics. And so on a short week, we got a lot of things to cover. It's important, obviously, that we work our tails off to stack this victory, man, and move on in our journey. And I think that's enough to have our attention as we prepare. We're excited about getting the guys in the building tomorrow and starting the process with them. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, you mentioned a lot of different areas being able to produce last night. What do you attribute that to when it comes to the offense?
I don't know. It's just daily work. Whether it's the offense or guys stepping up in special teams or on defense, I think we used everybody in the secondary in some form or fashion. James Pierre, Arthur Millette, and others. We just work diligently every day. And, we continually trying to put 8 pounds in a 5-pound bag as an analogy that I use because you just never know we get an opportunity to call upon it. And I never ask guys to be patient. I just ask them to work while they wait and to display their readiness when called upon. And that's what a lot of guys were able to do.
I think you had 3 guys go for 30 or more yards for the first time since the 90s. Is that something when it comes to a different approach or mixing guys in?
Injury.
Some of those guys, their attitudes, you can make the case that Pierre, Snell, McFarland were demoted or had lesser roles early this year than they had in the past. Have all their work ethics and their mindset and they're been buying in during this time?
I think we always acknowledge that roles never stay the same. They're ever changing. And so sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. This is football at its highest level. I think all guys know and understand that, and that's why they walk in the building with the spirit that they do every day. You got to earn it daily. And those guys continue to walk in with that spirit regardless of what the division of labor might be, because they need to be ready for their next opportunity.
Like aside from, I think you used the phrase, the battlefield promotion that McFarland and Snell had, aside from that aspect, the actual running of the football, what did you like most about what those two guys did?
I thought they stayed within their skill set. Benny is a deliberate one-cut downhill runner. Ant Mac is bursty and explosive and good in space, and I just thought they leaned on their strengths.
Mike, what's been the biggest thing that you've appreciated out of Mason Cole? He's a guy, this is his first year with the team. He's had a multiple weeks where he started off kind of limited, but been able to step up for you guys in a big way.
Man, he's a sharp guy. He brings a can-do attitude. He's a winner in his approach to ball. He's a good communicator. His football intellect is really solid and is helpful at that position in terms of the identification of protections and the picking up a blitz game.
Mike, as far as those five, how far have they come? What kind of progression have you seen from the offensive line?
Continual, but not that we're surprised by that. I think that's a reasonable expectation when you're working hard diligently daily.
Is there any long-term concern over Najee's injury?
Not as I sit here right now, but I don't have a lot of information as I sit here right now. I had no more information right now than I had last night when I addressed you guys.
Kenny mentioned that he gets asked, what he likes, what he doesn't like. I'm curious, how much input has he had now, from the start of the season? Any more, any less?
Yeah, I think it's a natural progression. I just think the more he gains experience, the more he's engaged in the process of game readiness, the more there's a give and take in communication in terms of what's appropriate from a play selection standpoint. Just natural business in terms of dealing with quarterbacks and their inclusion in the process.
Sort of along the lines of that give and take that you might be having with him, one point that was brought up a couple times during the broadcast last night, Aikman had said that when they spoke with Kenny, he didn't focus so much on the speed of the game jump from college to the pros being the biggest challenge, but the volume of defense that he's seen. We've talked to him about that. What interactions have you had with about taking on that volume of defense that you see now in the NFL, maybe they didn't see in college?
That's the transition that everyone has to go through. It's the same thing for receivers. The myriad of coverages and the bastard coverages that you see and the complexities of the things that you see requires adjustments and thinking on your feet and running adjustments, and it's a challenge for all young people on offense, probably receivers just as much as quarterbacks.
Dan Moore looked like maybe in the first quarter he got beaten a couple times and within 2 or 3 snaps, and then the rest of the game it looked like he was solid. Just about that bouncing back, and then just him in general, how he's progressing here.
It's football. The National Football League, you're going to lose some downs. There is ebb and flow. But you remain singularly focused on winning. When you do that, you don't tote bags of negative plays. And that's what we ask all the guys to do. It requires a certain level of maturity, and that's something that Dan has showed since day zero, and that's why he's been such a significant contributor since day zero.
Has Devin earned a bigger role? He played a lot more this game in terms of in the divisional labor at inside linebacker.
Robert Spillane was hurt.
Yeah, he played more than Miles too.
Miles was hurt maybe the week before.
Coach, your Monday Night Football record's 19-3. What do you chalk that up to?
I don't. Man, I get singularly focused on each opportunity. I respect Monday Night Football. I make sure our team does. I just appreciate it from a fan's perspective, somebody that loves football, that grew up pre-Sports Center, man. Howard Cosell gave you the highlights from the day before, and that's about all you saw. And then after halftime, my mom would make me go to bed. And so I just love and respect it and want to be prepared for it and put my best foot forward. But, I have no response to the record that you mentioned.
Does the win last night mean
No.
Mike, you mentioned roles with different guys. It's start with Mullet's role and what kind of can you describe the intensity he brings to the game?
He's a rundown nickel. He's a good blitzer. He's a good tackler. He brings a demeanor for a small guy that's kind of reflective of the dominant nickels that play. All the nickels that are dominant ones are angry little people. They don't stay blocked. They don't get blocked. They blitz extremely hard and well. They tackle big people. They play with an edge, and he fits that mold.
Like one of Atlanta things, as far as looking at how they've embraced the pass a little bit more of late, the last 5 to 6 weeks. From what you've been able to glean in the limited time you might have had so far, was that just a matter of them getting some success against Carolina in that 1 week and kind of building on that? Do they need that, do you think, to enforce what they wanted to do passing-wise?
I just think all of us are very much in development over the course of the season, and there are different things that occur that are breakthroughs, if you will, or accelerate that development. And maybe what you mentioned was for them, but I'm never surprised to see an evolution of a unit or a person or a team over the course of a season. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised when I don't see it.
Deontay expressed that he wanted to be targeted maybe a little bit more in the past. But how would you grade his performance last night?
I'm sure he does. I'm sure every receiver in the National Football League does. He made the necessary plays, and we're appreciative of his efforts. The target game, I'm not going to play that. You can play that every week with every receiver. Everybody wants targets.
What have you seen in the maturation of James Pierre as a guy that you guys have been able to call up? He's been multiple times this year where he's kind of come off the bench and been an asset for you guys, gets an interception and a couple breakups in this game.
It's just not too big for him. I just think that there's a steadiness in him that maybe wasn't there before, and it's probably just reflected more than anything in levels of communication, the conversations that you can have with him in game. He's present, he's aware, he can articulate the things he's seeing, and I just think it's just where he is relative to where he's been.
You talked about Patterson, but they have a couple of rookies that are running pretty well too this year. How do you prepare for their skill sets as well as Patterson's?
They do the same thing regardless of runner schematically.
Pickett, its first comeback, when you've talked a lot about his ability to do that or whatever, is that from observations in the stadium when he was with Pitt in games, or is that from seeing him, just knowing him in general, or is it both?
Both.
Mike, you have a lot of young guys or guys that aren't used to being in this locker room, just yet still figuring things out. But what does it say that you have so many guys like Dan Moore, like James Pierre, guys who can be resilient in the middle of a game when they make mistakes and find ways to win?
We expect them to. This big boy football, we expect them to.
Anyone else?
Did you get any sleep last night?
No, none.
You've done it before, you'll do it again. How do you manage a week like this, a short week?
It's business. We're not paid by the hour. We embrace that. We're competitors. This is a competitors week.
All right.
Thanks, guys.